When did you first surrender your crown? Was it the moment you started asking permission to be powerful? Was it when you stopped creating and started consuming, watching, scrolling, waiting for someone else to lead the life you were born to build? Or was it quieter, more sinister? When you traded imagination for imitation, creativity for conformity, command for compliance? Because here's the truth most people choke on. You cannot command what you did not create. You will never rule in a world that you let someone else design, and you cannot lead if you're terrified to be the architect of your own vision. If you want to command, you must start with creation, because the power to create is the power to own, to shape, to direct, and the minute you abdicate that power, you become a pawn in someone else's story. Creation is not about paintbrushes or poetry. It's not just for artists or inventors or the lucky few born with a gift. No, creation is the birthright of every soul brave enough to think independently. Edison didn't just invent the light bulb, he lit a match against the darkness of apathy. Ford didn't just build cars, he built a new reality where mobility wasn't a privilege, was a standard. Disney didn't just draw cartoons, he constructed entire universes from his mind because the world outside wasn't enough. You see, the greats, they weren't waiting for a blueprint. They were too busy designing it. They weren't asking what was possible. They were deciding it. They understood what most people forget. The power to create is the most primal, most divine, most dangerous power a human being possesses. Because the one who creates commands. But let's not pretend that power hasn't been hunted. This world, it conditions you to conform. It celebrates replicas. It rewards obedience. You were trained from a young age to color inside the lines, follow the instructions, repeat after the teacher, ask before you move, and fit into a box so small it chokes the air out of your lungs. And every time you question the system, they slapped a label on you: difficult, delusional, disruptive. But you weren't disruptive. You were creative. You had command in your Sulin, the world couldn't handle it. They told you to sit down when you wanted to build. Told you to be realistic when you were born to be revolutionary. Told you to blend in when your fire was meant to stand out. And over time you forgot. You forgot that you are not a copy. You are a creator. Before anything can be created, it must first be believed. Belief is the soil. Creation is the seed. Without belief, nothing grows. Look at Carnegie. He believed he could turn iron and fire into an empire when everyone else was too afraid to dream that big. He didn't just build steel. He built self-made power. Or must love him or hate him, it doesn't matter. He believed we could leave Earth, and so he built the rockets. Belief is not weak wishing. It is the architecture of the future. But most people don't create because they don't believe. Not in themselves. Not in their ideas. Not in their worth. And so they surrender the one power that could have changed everything. You want to command? Start by believing again so fiercely that the universe has no choice but to move. Creation without clarity is chaos. If belief is the seed, clarity is the hands that shape it. You can't create what you can't see. You can't build what you haven't defined. Clarity is not some luxury. It is a weapon, a scalpel, a sword against distraction. Walt Disney saw an entire kingdom in his mind before a single brick was laid. Jobs envisioned the elegance of simplicity long before Apple put it in your hands. Clarity isn't guessing, it's deciding. And most people never create anything real because they're afraid to choose. They want every option. They want safety nets. They want to hedge every bet so they end up building nothing. The creator commits. The creator carves. The creator says, this is the vision. All else must burn. You know what separates the daydreamers from the commanders? Discipline. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom, it is the force. It is the chisel that shapes the raw marble of your ideas into something legendary. You think Edison didn't suffer? You think Disney didn't bleed for it? You think Jobs didn't get ridiculed while chasing perfection? Discipline is the price of the throne. The Creator shows up even when it's inconvenient, even when it's boring, even when the world is laughing. They show up because they know creation is not a burst of lightning, it is a relentless fire. Tended, protected, fed. If you want to command, you must earn it. And you earn it with discipline. What fuels the Creator long after applause fades? Purpose, not ego, not validation, not a paycheck or a pat on the back. Purpose. Lincoln didn't endure a civil war for fame. He did it because he saw a future that demanded blood and vision. Purpose gives you stamina when motivation dies. It gives your creation meaning so that you don't just build loud things. You build lasting ones. When your purpose is aligned, your creation becomes unstoppable because it's no longer about you. It's about something greater. The Creator doesn't ask, what do I want to do? They ask, what must I build to honor the truth within me? Every creator gets punched in the mouth. Every inventor gets mocked. Every visionary gets dismissed until their vision becomes the new religion. Resilience isn't optional, it's the armor of the chosen. They will laugh at you. They will misunderstand you. They will call your genius madness. Good. That's how you know you're close. Because the world doesn't fear comfort. It fears command. And command only comes to those who create and refuse to quit. You don't get to create only when it's easy. You create when it's painful, when it's lonely, when it's heavy, because you are building something eternal. Ideas mean nothing without action. Creation is not what lives in your head. It's what you bring into the world. The journal doesn't matter. The blueprint doesn't matter. The plan doesn't matter. Action is the altar where potential becomes real. Beethoven couldn't hear, but he still composed. Helen Keller couldn't see or speak, but she still changed the world. Excuses are loud, but creation is louder. And the one who takes action, who builds, who launches, who publishes, who shows up, that one earns the right to command. Because creation is not theoretical. It is physical, emotional, spiritual, real. Everything you create outlives you. Your words, your work, your vision. It's all bigger than you. Tesla died broke, but his brilliance became immortal. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, but his dream still marches. Your creations are the footprints you leave on eternity. And the world is starving for originals. It's drowning in copies, noise, trend chasers, and echo chambers. But you were never meant to echo. You were meant to resound. You cannot command the world until you command your mind. This is where most creators fall, not because they lack talent, not because they lack tools, but because they are slaves to their own thoughts. They create with one hand and destroy with the other. Their mind becomes a battlefield of doubts, fears, opinions, and imaginary critics screaming louder than the call of their purpose. But the master creator, the commander, he doesn't outsource his thinking. He filters every thought. He questions every belief. He rebuilds his mental palace, brick by brick, until his mind becomes a fortress. Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Well, a mind divided cannot create. You don't need more information. You need inner sovereignty. You need to silence the noise and listen to the inner architect that's been whispering your destiny all along. Because your mind is the throne room of creation. And if you don't sit on it, someone else will. Let's be honest. Creation is terrifying. Not because you don't know what to do, but because the act of creating exposes you. It lays your soul bare on the altar of the world. It says, here I am. This is what I made. This is what I believe. And that is dangerous because it invites judgment. It invites rejection. It invites failure. But you must understand, fear is not a sign to stop. It's a signal you're on sacred ground. Every great creator, every commander has stood at this precipice. Da Vinci stared at blank canvases. MLK stood before a divided nation. Bezos built in a garage before it became a global empire. They all felt the fear, but they created anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to create in spite of it. And the moment you create, you strip fear of its power, because fear cannot coexist with movement. When you create, you don't just shift your life, you shift the world around you. Your courage gives someone else permission. Your vision plants seeds in strangers. Your existence becomes a mirror that says, you can rise too. That's the real power of command. Not domination, not control, but influence. Gandhi didn't rule with force. He ruled with spirit. Oprah didn't command attention with noise. She commanded it by building a platform of truth, compassion, and relentless work. True commanders don't need to shout. They don't need to prove. Their creations speak for them. You don't need a title. You don't need approval. You only need the courage to create something so real, so bold, so magnetic, that the world cannot look away. Because when you create from your truth, you become the voice people didn't know they were waiting for. Creation is not a one-time act. It is a lifelong vow. You don't become a commander after one masterpiece. You become one through consistency, through commitment to continual evolution. Michelangelo didn't stop after David. He kept sculpting. Beethoven didn't retire after one symphony. He kept composing. Great creators don't look for finish line. They look for higher peak, because mastery is not just about producing. It's about refining. It's about deepening. It's about falling in love with the craft, not just the outcome. You don't create to arrive. You create to become. And every time you return to the canvas, to the code, to the words, to the vision, you are declaring, I am not finished. I am still forging. I am still commanding. That's what separates the few who lead from the many who follow. Command without alignment is chaos. You've seen it before, people who build towers with shaky foundations. They chase visibility instead of vision. They build brands without souls. They amass followers but forget who they are. But when a creator aligns, when their values, actions, and vision move as one, they become unstoppable. Steve Jobs didn't just want sleek devices. He wanted elegance, clarity, and rebellion in every corner of Apple. Every decision, every detail, aligned. You too must align. If your words say one thing, but your life whispers another, your creation loses power. The universe does not reward contradiction. It rewards congruence. So check yourself. Does your creation reflect your truth or your image? Are you building from conviction or from craving? Because until your inner world matches your outer creation, you may produce, but you will not command. Creation without ownership is noise. You can design it, build it, even launch it. But if you do not own it fiercely, unapologetically, entirely, you will never command it. Ownership means taking responsibility for your vision before the world celebrates it, and especially when it doesn't. It means standing by what you've made, even when it's misunderstood, overlooked, or ridiculed. It means saying, this is mine, I built this, I believe in this. Even when your hands are shaking, because too many creators build but never claim. They disclaim their genius. They water down their message. They hide behind false humility because they're afraid of the weight of their own greatness. But command demands ownership. You cannot rule over what you are too timid to claim. Beethoven owned his brilliance even in deafness. Van Gogh owned his soul even in madness. Every legend you admire, they didn't just create it. They took ownership of it. That's why their legacy lasts. Because what you own fully, the world remembers fully. You want to know why your creation matters? Because it is rebellion. It is the refusal to settle for what the world handed you. It is the uprising of spirit against mediocrity. To create is to say, I will not accept the default. I will not be a clone, a shadow, a copy. I will carve something new, even if I bleed in the process. Look around. Comfort is the new contagion. Convenience is the new king. Mediocrity is disguised as self-care, and passion is diluted into passive scrolling. But not you. You weren't born to sleep through your potential. You weren't born to nod and agree while your soul screams for more. Your creation is a rebellion. It is a fire that declares, I will not go quietly. I will not blend in. And when you create like that, with that kind of fire in your bones, you don't just build something. You build a revolution. Command doesn't wait. It initiates. Every great creation began with someone bold enough to start when no one else would. There were no guarantees, no applause, no map, just an idea and a decision. Rosa Parks sat down. Mandela stood up. Nightingale walked into plague-ridden wards with no blueprint and no backup. They initiated. While others hesitated, they acted. That is creation at its purest form. The willingness to begin what others are too afraid to face. The boldness to take the first step and trust the path will rise to meet your feet. If you wait for clarity, for certainty, for permission, you will die waiting. Creation is not for the careful, it's for the committed. The one who initiates earns the right to lead, because the world does not follow the most perfect. It follows the one who moves first. Before Rome, there was a dream. Before Tesla, there was a spark. Before any creation, there's imagination. The tragedy? Most people let the world starve their imagination until it's just a shadow of what it once was. They call it growing up. They call it being realistic. But it's not realism. It's resignation. The most powerful empires in history began as wild, untamed ideas in the mind of one bold creator. I once said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But first, you must dare to conceive it. You must protect your imagination like a sacred flame. Feed it, stretch it, dare it to defy gravity. Because if you cannot imagine something better, you will forever be enslaved by what already is. And that is the death of command. Creation is how you bring your imagination into form. Command is what happens when others are drawn into that new world you built. But imagination, that's the ignition switch. And if yours has gone dim, it's time to reignite it. If you want to command, you must stop treating time like a tyrant. Creators don't chase time. They expand it. They don't say, I don't have time. They say, I make time for what I was born to build. Einstein didn't rush. He slowed the clock with obsession. Da Vinci didn't punch in. He disappeared into timeless flow. The creator commands time not through speed, but through depth, through presence, through ruthless prioritization. Because every minute you spend on someone else's dream is a minute stolen from the one you were meant to build. Stop being a time consumer. Become a time creator. You weren't made to react. You were made to direct. And when your relationship with time shifts, when you no longer wait for the right moment, but declare it, you stop operating as a worker and begin operating as a commander. If you want to command, you must stop designing your vision to please the fearful. Because here's the reality. The bolder the creation, the louder the resistance. The more original your idea, the more it threatens the status quo. And the more you disrupt the comfort of others, the more they will try to dismantle your fire. That's not a sign you're wrong. That's confirmation you're becoming undeniable. Look at every visionary who built something world-altering. They were ridiculed, dismissed, attacked before they were praised. They were told it would never work. They were mocked for thinking differently. They were warned, tone it down, play it safe, don't be so intense. But they didn't fold. They fireproofed their vision. They wrapped it in conviction. They protected it from the opinions of the small-minded. They guarded it with inner steel that no critic could penetrate. Because the creator who fears criticism will always shrink before their masterpiece is born. You must build your vision so powerfully aligned with truth that no external voice can unseat it. Critics don't stop commanders. They just reveal who isn't one. Now, hear this clearly. If you want to create something eternal, you must detach from the need for instant reward. This world has tricked you into believing that every effort must produce applause, that every post must get likes, that every launch must go viral, that your value is measured by metrics, algorithms, and approval. But the greatest creators didn't create for results. They created because they couldn't not. Van Gogh sold one painting in his lifetime. Kafka died unpublished. Tesla died alone, his genius barely recognized. They didn't create for numbers. They created because their soul demanded expression, and that was enough. You don't command through results. You command through consistency, devotion, and an unshakable bond to the process itself. Detach. Detach from outcome, from praise, from external validation. Create like the world is already yours because in your heart it is. Only then are you free to build what truly matters. Only then can your creation outlive you. A creator's power is sacred. So protect it, because not everyone deserves to see you build. Not everyone should witness your masterpiece in progress. Some people bring rain where you need fire. Some dilute your hunger with their comfort. Some whisper caution when you need thunder. You must curate your environment like a cathedral. Surround yourself with those who create, not those who consume, who act, not those who advise, who believe, not those who shrink you to fit their insecurity, because iron sharpens iron. But mediocrity rusts everything it touches. Think of Carnegie's mastermind group. Think of Hill's burning obsession with proximity to greatness. Your inner circle is not a social club. It is a forge. Let them challenge you. Let them push you. But above all, let them believe in the throne you were born to rise to. Protect your vision from the unworthy, because what you build in silence will one day echo so loudly, they'll wonder how they missed your rise. You want to know what separates average creators from world changers? Obsession, not with fame, not with approval, but with refinement. Commanders don't stop at good enough. They rework, rethink, and reinvent until their creation reflects the full weight of their vision. They aren't in love with the product. They're in love with the craft. Beethoven rewrote entire symphonies before letting the ink dry. Jobs sent prototypes back dozens of times to shave millimeters off a device. Kobe Bryant shot 1,000 free throws before breakfast just to improve one. That's not overthinking. That's ownership. Refinement is not insecurity. It is reverence. When you refine what you create, you declare, "This matters. This reflects my soul. I will not ship garbage to the world and expect greatness in return." You don't create once. You create and then you sculpt it into something so clear, so sharp, so true that it leaves an imprint on everything it touches. That's not perfectionism. That's command. Let me tell you something the world won't. The work that matters most is often invisible. It won't trend. It won't get likes. It won't go viral. It's the hours you spend alone, bleeding into your vision. The nights when no one's watching, the sacrifices no one applauds. That's where the real power is forged. Think of the Wright brothers building in barns and bike shops. Think of Mandela writing speeches in a prison cell. Think of Maya Angelou rehearsing words that would one day crack open generations. Their power was formed in silence, in shadows, in the unseen. But here's what they knew. The invisible becomes inevitable. The unseen becomes unforgettable. When you create from soul, the universe takes notice even when no one else does. That's why you never stop. That's why you keep refining. That's why you create, because you know every unseen stroke is one breath closer to something immortal. If what you build costs your integrity, it's not creation, it's corruption. And the world is full of beautiful, hollow things, loud, polished brands, with no truth beneath the surface, massive audiences, with no soul behind the voice. You weren't born to become one of them. Creative integrity is your compass. It keeps your vision aligned when the world dangles shortcuts. It keeps your voice clean when the noise gets profitable. It reminds you that the cost of betrayal is always higher than the price of patience. Commanders don't chase crowds. They don't mimic trends. They don't dilute truth for market share. They build what must be built, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's not popular, even when it doesn't go viral, because they know what is forged in truth becomes immortal, and what is forged in compromise always collapses. So protect your purity, not your image, your truth, your voice, your soul, because in a world addicted to imitation, creation with integrity is the rarest and most powerful form of command. Every act of creation draws energy, mental, emotional, spiritual. And too many creators burn out not because they lack purpose, but because they give away their power to things that never earned it. You want to build something timeless? Then guard your energy like a general guards the last stronghold. Your focus is your fortune. Your attention is your authority. Your energy is your currency. Don't waste it on drama, on debates, on distractions designed to drain the fire from your mind. Do you think Carnegie scrolled endlessly? Do you think Disney asked for consensus? Do you think Lincoln needed feedback before he spoke truth? Of course not. They preserved their power. They protected their peace. They channeled their fire where it mattered most, into the thing they were building. Energy is finite. Every leak weakens the power of your creation. So choose what deserves your fire and burn everything else to the ground. Everything you create becomes a thread in eternity. A speech, a film, a movement, a system, a moment of truth etched into the fabric of time. You don't need to be remembered by name to live forever. You need only to build something that echoes. Harriet Tubman built freedom. She never sought headlines. She forged legacy. Alan Turing built machines that cracked codes and rewrote history. He wasn't celebrated in his lifetime, but the world runs on his genius. You must stop measuring impact by applause and start measuring it by echoes. Because when you create something that liberates others, when your words or your work unlock possibility in someone else, you transcend your body. You outlive your moment. That's the true nature of command. Not to be seen, but to shape. Not to dominate, but to define. You create to leave footprints so deep that even time can't erase them. With power comes a pact. And every creator who rises to command must accept the weight that comes with it. Because when your work starts to influence, when your vision begins to shape decisions, futures, lives, You are no longer just a builder. You are a leader, and leadership is not popularity. It is responsibility. You are responsible for the ripple you cause, for the direction your creation moves others, for the standard your voice now sets. And the week they run from this, they pretend their influence is accidental. They deflect, they hide, they say, I'm just sharing. But the commander accepts it. They don't apologize for their voice. They don't shy away from their reach. They rise into it with humility, with fire, and with the clarity that what they create must now serve something greater. This is not about ego. This is about impact. When you command, you carry. And that responsibility is not a burden, it is a crown. You will not always feel powerful. There will be seasons when your ideas feel empty, when your vision feels blurred, when you wonder if any of it still matters. That's the valley, and it is sacred, because creation born in the valley is the kind that shifts mountains. Do you think Mandela felt inspired every day in that cell? Do you think MLK felt clear every time he was arrested? Do you think Oprah knew the full map when she was fired and discarded? No, but they kept building. They kept showing up. They kept creating in the dip. Command doesn't wait for the mountaintop. Command is forged when the lights are off, when the crowds are gone, when the voice trembles but speaks anyway. If you can create there, you will create everywhere, because valleys don't block commanders. They build them. Let this truth strike you like lightning. No one is coming to grant you permission, not your boss, not your partner, not society, not your past, not even your future self. You will not be knighted with a golden sword and told, you may now begin. If you are still waiting to be allowed, you are still enslaved. Command does not wait to be picked. It picks itself. It decides itself. It anoints itself. The Creator doesn't ask, am I ready? They declare, it's time. Maya Angelou didn't wait to be validated. She wrote. She stood. She spoke. No one gave Edison a road map. No one gave Musk a script. They shattered the doors labeled authorized personnel only and walked through because they knew the only true authority is the one you choose to embody. Creation is not democratic. It is sovereign. And if you want to command, you must destroy the idea that you need to be given permission to become who you already are. Creation begins in silence, in the whispers you speak to yourself when no one is listening. And most people never command anything because their internal narrative is poison. They rehearse failure before they try. They narrate defeat before they act. They replay rejections from 10 years ago and call it caution. But the Creator, the true Creator, rewrites the story. They don't just create things. They create themselves daily, moment by moment, word by word. They choose new language, new metaphors, new affirmations that drip with precision and power. They don't say, I hope this works. They say, this is already happening. They don't say, what if I fail? They say, what if this becomes a movement? The story you tell yourself is the blueprint of your reality. And if you want to command your outer world, you must first become the author of your inner one. Creation is not always gentle. It is not always poetic. Sometimes it is war, because to build something new, you must first destroy what doesn't belong. The old version of you, the lies that raised you, the limits that wrapped around your brilliance like barbed wire. The Creator becomes a warrior, not with fists, but with decisions. They destroy distraction. They kill delay. They obliterate excuses until nothing is left but now. And like every war, there will be casualties, comfort, approval, familiarity. But in that destruction, a new power emerges. Ford had to fight the old guard of transportation. Jobs had to wage war on complexity. Frida Kahlo had to rage against the canvas of her own pain. Creation is not passive. It is violent transformation, not of others, but of self. And when you are willing to fight for the world you see in your mind, you become the one who leads others out of the old one. No one tells you this part. But greatness is boring. Real creation, sustained, revolutionary, lasting creation is not all lightning bolts and breakthroughs. It's repetition. It's iteration. It's falling in love with the monotony of mastery. Command is born in the daily, not the dramatic. Tiger Woods didn't practice a different swing every week. He repeated one until it became legend. Beethoven didn't try 50 instruments. He mastered the piano until it became his language. The creator doesn't need novelty to stay lit. They find fire in repetition. They don't chase stimulation. They devour the process, the tiny details, the subtleties, the texture of progress, so granular most people never notice it. That's why most people quit. They mistake boredom for failure. But you were built different. You see boredom as the blessing of focus. You don't crave new. You crave depth because, only those willing to repeat greatness ever command it. Your current identity is not sacred. It's just a mirror, and it can be shattered. Too many creators stop evolving because they're still trying to protect the reflection others are used to. You say, I'm not that kind of person. I've never done this before. What will they think if I change? But you must understand, creation requires identity death. The version of you that survives is rarely the version of you that commands. Command demands reinvention. And reinvention demands destruction of the small self, the obedient self, the modest self, the overly polite, overly reasonable, overly digestible self. There is no room for that version in the kingdom you're here to build. So break the mirror. Step out of the reflection others are addicted to. Let them mourn the past version of you. You're not here to be recognized. You're here to be reborn. Because the power to create is the power to redefine yourself over and over and over again until you finally become the one who no longer needs mirrors at all. You become unmistakably you. So now we stand here at the edge of everything you could be, everything you were meant to be. And I ask you, with no apology, no hesitation, will you remain a witness, or will you become the force? Because this world doesn't need more spectators. It doesn't need more people waiting to be liked. It doesn't need another copy, another mimic, another muted soul chasing recycled approval. It needs you, unfiltered, uncompromised, unshaken. It needs the version of you who is done waiting, done shrinking, done making excuses for the fire that was always inside you. The world you want, it does not respond to hoping. It does not answer to effort alone. It only bows to the one who creates relentlessly, unapologetically, and without permission. Because when you create, you don't just make art, you make authority. When you create, you don't just build dreams, you build domains. When you create, you don't just express truth, you forge thrones. And from that throne, the one you carved with belief and vision and discipline and blood, you finally command. Not because someone crowned you, but because you remembered creation is the crown. The decision to speak when silence is safer, to build when others are distracted, to show up when the world told you to sit down. That is your power. That is your right. That is the beginning of all command. So build it, shape it, launch it, refine it, rebuild it, and then build it again. Let the world feel the tremble in the ground as your ideas rise from the depths of your imagination. Because from this moment on, you will never again ask, can I? You will never again whisper, is it okay? You will never again wonder if you're enough. You will rise not as a shadow, not as a maybe, but as a creator. And in doing so, you will command everything you once believed was out of reach. Not because the world gave it to you, but because you built it yourself. And once you build it, you never have to ask for it again.